Welcome everybody. This is a new NIO Earnings live stream. I hope you're doing all right. Thanks for tuning in again, everyone. And for those people who've been waiting already in the waiting room, I'll just start with a little bit of an introduction here until we got a couple more viewers. Let's fill this up, this room, this live stream. Let me know if everything works with the audio and the video. And please feel free to smash a like and share it on social media in your favorite NIO investors group so more people can join us. Those who are commenting are loyal subscribers to this channel. I appreciate that. I have enabled live commenting here for those who have been subscribing to the channel more than 1 year. So on this channel, we value long-term outlooks and not short-term thinking. So really pleased with everybody who's been commenting already here, who has been a long-term subscriber. If you are not, then I hope you could actually subscribe to this channel, and then maybe in 1 year's time, you will be able to actually also comment on my live streams. Morning from Barcelona, Marcus. You seem to be having a great life living in Barcelona. I envy you. Here in Germany, where it seems the summer is getting over. Okay, 75 viewers. I think I'll start when we are at 100 more. And as always, you know, this will be the first take with the live stream about the earnings report. I haven't fully read it yet, but I have crunched some numbers already. And then I will do a separate live stream later, live streaming the management call. So it's going to be 2 sessions again, live currently, but then also available as recording for those, for example, in the US who are getting up later and need to watch the recording, right? Wow, Latvia, Dubai, amazing folks gathering here. Somebody from the US, that must be so early in the morning. If you're East Coast, it's 6 in the morning, right? So we're almost at 100. And then just let me repeat one more time. This is the live stream for the earnings report, which I now walk through. First look, I will give you my immediate feedback on that. I will benchmark it against my personal expectations. I try to dig into what I can find, finish it off with a bit of a Q&A. So if you're a long-term subscriber, you will be able to ask me any question. And once I feel I talked through everything, then I will quit this live stream and start another live stream later on for the management call. And as always, just hit the bell so you will get a notification, you will know. And now we're more than 100, so I can start going into what we can read out there. Share the screen. Unfortunately, today I'm traveling right now, so I'm just with my computer screen here. So might make this setup a little bit more difficult, but it should be okay. All right, as always, I like to start with a little bit of the headlines news. So I haven't watched in what they are writing here. This is Seeking Alpha, and we get the immediate headlines here. Non-GAAP in line with minus 30 cents and revenue of 2.4 billion misses by 40 million, which is given the huge numbers here. It's basically, I mean, 40 million doesn't make a difference, right? But seems okay. I'm actually a bit surprised to see that they say the bottom line is in line, but we can take a look at that in a second. I first talk through the earnings release. Let me make the screen a little bit larger here. I think this one might be easier to read for you guys. And then I will also talk you through my personal expectations. So what we have here, we always know the vehicle deliveries already. Maybe let's look at some nice growth numbers here. An increase of 118% from the second quarter of 2023. Yep, that's what I mentioned in my videos, right? We're going to have these really nice year-over-year quarterly growth numbers due to the fact that 2023 was horrible for NIO with all of the COVID reopening, and the transition to the new platform. So vehicle margin comes in at 12.2. More on that in a second. Total revenues, as we just said, is 2.4 billion. The gross profit, 232 million. Yeah, that's an actual gross profit here. More on that later. Gross margins, 9.7%. Loss from operations, well, let's look at the net loss, so basically 700 million. Cash and equivalents, 5.7 billion. Let's see if we got any interesting recent developments and notes. Deliveries, we know about that, consecutively above 20K. I think that's really nice. Power Up Countries plan. Yeah, we had a couple of management presentations recently. Share issuance for share incentive plan. On July 12th, NIO issued 30 million Class A ordinary shares in order to incentivize their staff. So that's usual. As a startup, you're not able to pay the highest wages out there and, for example, compete with the legacy OEM like BMW, Volkswagen, and so on. Instead, you will offer a lower salary, but share incentive plans, meaning that these employees will get stock options, which will vest over some time. That means they need to achieve milestones or commit working to NIO for a couple of years. Only then they will actually vest these into actual shares. And we know from companies like NVIDIA, people have gotten millionaires like that. But this also tells us that there is an intrinsic incentive for NIO employees, at least, but also for the management team and the company as a whole to make some improvements to the share price, to the stock price, right? This is a long-term game, but nobody would come and work for NIO if you're just granted shares and the shares are looking disastrous for the future. I mean, they've been looking, quite frankly, disastrous for the last couple of years, but the future might be a different thing. So CNO and CFO comments in the second quarter of 2024 achieved record-breaking 57,000. Okay, securing over 40% of the market share in the vehicle segment above 300K RMB. So that's quite impressive. I like that they highlight this fact again, because too many people are just comparing apple to oranges. And what NIO has achieved here as a Chinese brand, I think is quite remarkable in this premium to luxury segment. I think the other day I saw some numbers about the Tesla premium cars like the X and the S and so on, and the numbers that NIO is doing in comparison compared to Tesla's numbers in the premium segment. I mean, they are outselling them. It's crazy. So we'll see. I mean, obviously we now have Onvo coming up, going into the lower tier volume segment, but you know about that, more on that later. NIO's core competitive advantages in technology, prices, community, increasing recognitions from users, driving the continuous strong vehicle sales performance. So NIO is making more than 60% by recommendation, word of mouth from users. That's the latest stat that I heard in Q3 or Q4 in 2023. They highlight again that in July and August they are on a good performance here with more than 20,000 vehicles each month. Now they talk about the AI-themed NIO Innovation Day, talking about the fully self-developed full domain operating system, which they highlighted. I think in the English-speaking world, to be honest, not so many people took note because this presentation was entirely in Chinese. So yeah, it's nice that they highlight here again in the earnings call. I think it's a little bit of a try for NIO to position also as an AI play, also for the markets. I think it's very undervalued in this regard. It's basically getting zero appreciation for what they're doing in these regards. These are heavy R&D investments that are finally, being launched and at some point in the future are going to yield results, and also on the financial side. Additionally, they built 105 Onvo brand stores. In my Patreon community the other day, we talked about that. I think it's really, because I was worried personally a little bit on the impact on this earnings call, on how much they had to invest also in launching the Onvo brand, right? And one aspect of that is building the brand stores. But there's some official remarks by NIO employees or the management, which seem to me that the effect on the cost side is really not that much. Maybe we'll see more on the marketing side also of an impact of Onvo. I think that reflects maybe a little bit of this sluggish and very conservative sentiment by investors going into this earnings call or this earnings report. Basically, nobody was confident about this black box of Onvo and the whole thing with the CFO change and so on. So this is going to be the first report of the new CFO, and will hopefully add lots of clarity. Due to the ongoing cost optimizations, our vehicle gross margin increased to 12%. So they highlight this fact here, which I think is nice that they do that, because that's what I mentioned in my last couple of videos, that NIO is likely to show a different result here than the competitors have shown, like Xiaopeng, like BYD, like Li Auto, and so on. I talked about it in another video, that this was the results of these others have been possibly one of the reasons why there was, I think, a very big sell-off in the EV space in China. So NIO is seemingly on a different path. And now, before I go into the details of these numbers, let's finish up with some outlook here. So first of all, cash position at 5.7 billion. And then the deliveries are guided towards 61 to 63K units. So they already know pretty much what they're going to print in September. So it's going to be above 20K again, I guess, given those guidelines here. And then total revenues, 2.6 billion. Okay, so I didn't see anything special in this report, like a new type of announcement that we didn't factor in yet. Maybe I've missed it. I'm just skimming through this the first time as you see that. So let me know in the comment section again if I miss anything. Sometimes I can be confused in these live streams because there's so much to digest in a short period of time. Okay, now I'm going to switch the screen, and I will quickly jump into my Excel sheet and give you how these numbers compare to my own personal expectations and how I think these numbers should be interpreted, whether or not they're good or bad. So at this point, welcome back to everybody who now tuned in to this live stream. As always, this will be the first live stream about the report, which I just briefly went through, and followed up by a Q&A. Then I'll do another live stream later on, which I think will be an important management call, and also with the new CFO the first time. So very highly looking forward to listening into that one. And as always, all of this will be available as a recording later on to everybody who's getting up later on the West Coast, for example. But yeah, feel free to smash a like, to share this video, and also to subscribe if you haven't yet. Those who have been subscriber for long term are able to comment here in the comment section live during this live stream. So now let's talk about my own expectations, and I've done this a little bit simpler this time. I'm always jumping into my Excel sheet for the NIO business case. My Patreon subscribers know about the business case, and it's a quite complex document, to be honest. It's a working document, so it's maybe not fit for a YouTube session. So I've just made this one tab, which is a little bit easier to digest, hopefully, let me know. And let me just see if you can view this. Yeah, it should be big enough to read, right? So these are my own expectations, the own estimates on the left-hand side. Here, let me highlight this in red. And as you can see, my overall takeaway would be it's pretty damn close to what we have come out here. I already have to correct this one number, because Seeking Alpha was speaking of 30 cents on the EPS. So that's actually really totally in line with the EPS estimations out there, including mine. So let's go into vehicle sales. I estimated 2.18 billion. We come in at 2.16-ish billion. So for me, it's 20 million off. More or less. And the market says that this is a miss on the revenues, also that the market generally has higher estimates for that. But I would say it's pretty close. For the total revenues, I had actually a little bit higher expectations, 270. It's just 243. To me, that's not as great. I would love to see the other sales grow a bit faster. So that's including like the e-commerce, NIO Life, battery swapping services, things like that. So still lacking a little bit, to be honest, because overall, I would say I'm generally more on the conservative side currently with my business case estimations. But let's talk about a highlight. I had the sales margin or the vehicle margin at 12% as an estimate, and we come in at 12.2%. So that's on point, and that's great. This is possibly one of the best takeaways of this report. We get back to double-digit vehicle margins. This means on each of the cars selling, NIO is actually earning a profit. It's just not that they have enough of these profits accumulated with each of the cars that they're selling yet in order to pay everything else that's coming after that. So I see sometimes what I think are highly misleading charts on how much money NIO or other EV companies are burning per car sold. And I think what is giving you a better indicator of profitability is actually the sales margin or the vehicle margin, because in the end, everything what's coming after, what is it? It's stuff like research and development, R&D. It is sales and general administrative expenses. So in short, SG&A. Research and development, we know NIO is highly invested in that, right? I've anticipated they're going to do maybe just pretty flat 420 million. Came in a little bit higher, 443 million. So that means they're still going high on R&D on stuff like their self-developed chips, stuff like new models and so on, right? So I would say pretty much in line again. But the important thing for you to know is that at some point in the future, either the vehicle sales have grown so high that combined with the vehicle margin, which I expect to continue growing in this double-digit range, maybe up to 20%, what they guided in the long term, or 25% in the long-term future. At some point, that money coming in here from those revenues with this margin will be enough to hopefully pay off all of the operating expenses. But what be an alternative is obviously they could scale back on R&D expenses, right? So that means that even with lower sales, or not lower sales, but the same sales and existing margin, at some point they might be able to pay off some of those operating, or most of those operating expenses, in order to really decrease the net loss or the cash burn in general, right? So I would say this is my highlight of this report. It's coming in with my own expectations, but I'm glad to seeing that one confirmed here. This is a really big deal. If that would have come in lower, I would have been really concerned about NIO, because that would have really been in line with what the whole other industry players are currently printing, like decreases in vehicle margins, or in some cases even negative vehicle margins. So I made a wrong statement in my last video that XPeng is actually still in negative vehicle margins territory, but actually they have improved but the quarter before they were actually also in negative vehicle margin. That means they didn't even meet the cost to produce a car with the price tag of selling a car. You need to imagine that. But now it's positive, but still lower than what NIO is doing there. And for the trajectory for NIO here is with each of the reports currently, the vehicle margin is growing. So, I mean, that's a great sign of profitability, and that's coming from the unit economics of the economies of scale and so on, right? So this is really important for us. This means it's quite healthy in the direction that it's going. So that's great to see. It's exactly what I said also in my last videos, that NIO will be different to these other players there. So I think markets didn't buy in that, right? They didn't believe that NIO could be an outlier in the industry there. They just see the industry trend of margins going down. Oh yeah, we've got the price war in China, so it's going to be terrible, right? But NIO is on a different path here because they have finalized the transition to the NT 2.0 platform, and also because they're now really ramping up the vehicle sales, and so unit economics getting better and efficiencies, like the CFO has said. So that's great. Now, gross margin, I expected them to be 9%. They came in at 9.7, so I'm happy with that. That's good. But there is some ugly side of the report, unfortunately, here. So as you can see, the operating expenses, I only highlight the R&D and SG&A here, usually 420 mil and 400 mil, my expectations. Especially on the SG&A side, they have been higher. That means they have been investing more in, that might be the Onvo brand build out, the marketing ramp up, plus maybe what I mentioned also before, NIO is not participating in the price war the same way that others are doing. So NIO is not slashing the vehicle price tag. Usually, what they do instead is they provide incentives, discounts on some certain items. They provide free items. They provide battery swapping vouchers. They provide different way of making people buy the vehicle, but at the same price tag as before. So this way, it's not deteriorating their brand. In contrast to, for example, Tesla, which is just slashing vehicle prices, right, in order to get more vehicle sales. NIO's not doing that. But of course, that's also coming at a cost the way NIO is doing it. It's just not coming to the expense of the vehicle margin, which is seen that it's going up. Instead, for NIO, it's likely to be added here. It's some sort of a selling and marketing added cost that will come on here. The good thing is that this has been sort of one-time effects. You now see that NIO has phased out some of these initiatives. And maybe that will be a question by the analysts for the management in the earnings call. Like, how much will this weigh on NIO SG&A in the future? And I think the company strategy seems to be that now they're phasing that out. NIO has survived the price war by not even cutting the prices, but not destroying their brand. Now Onvo comes in and takes the lower tier volume segment, which means they don't need to offer discounts on the NIO cars anymore, like or not even play with that price tag, because now they have a offering which is more affordable. And I think maybe a tiny bit too early to say that NIO has succeeded this tough period, but it seems to be pretty damn close. So unfortunately, the total operating expenses are coming in higher, plus the net losses are also coming higher. I've estimated actually that they would be around 590 million. It's 100 million more than what I've personally estimated. So, what I said is what kind of signal they need to show to the market here is that the net losses with each of the quarterly reports is now narrowing and coming down. And that can be done by selling more vehicles, by improving the margin, and by improved operating expenses. Now, the operating expenses haven't improved, or are maybe similar to what they've been in the past, and therefore it's only having a tiny impact. I think the net loss last quarter Let me jump into my more complicated Excel sheet for a second. I'm not sure, oops, if I even have it in here, but loss from net loss last time, Q1 actuals, yeah, was 718. So yeah, they now start this journey of going down, but just too slightly, right? It's not as much of an improvement. EPS in line and cash at 5.7 billion, exactly how I anticipated it. So still a quite comfortable cash position, but I really want to see the net losses decreasing further and quicker. That's too tiny of a step here for the net losses to come down, because once this is coming down sustainably, so this is now the first quarter, I think, where the net losses are actually going down, but not as much as I was hoping. But if next quarter is also coming down, and the next quarter and so on, then also those people who are saying, well, NIO is going to go bankrupt and NIO has no future, they will become more and more silent, because there's actually not such a case anymore, right? So concluding here, I would say this report is pretty much in line with my personal expectations. I'm really happy about the confirmation of this double-digit sales margin. That's the positive of my report. All of the other numbers pretty much in line with what I've anticipated. I would have loved to see that this net loss situation is going much more and quicker in the direction that I'm anticipating. It's not. However, maybe you can see this with a little bit of a smiling eye with tears inside, which is that the EPS at least seems to be in line with the analysts out there. But I would have loved to see a beat, to be honest. So, because NIO has also the problem that they're not always meeting their guidance and the analyst estimates. If they start beating that consecutively, then it's going into the right direction. Now let's finalize this off before I head into the Q&A, and maybe dive into the earnings report again for what I've actually may have missed. Let's look at some important KPIs. I'm watching vehicle average sales prices. I've personally estimated 41,000 as an average. We come in at 40,000 and some small number. So this is pretty much in line, and I'm very, very happy to see that, because last quarter it was actually below 40K, and everybody was like freaking out. Oh, this is the price war, and NIO's not earning, or not. NIO's not in this high price segment anymore as they used to be, but I think that was really, like I explained in the last quarter, one-time effects due to the phase out of the old platform models. And we can see that it's now going back up again. And again, in a time where we have this price war and everything's going on, this is a signal to the market that NIO's average sales price is actually going up again. So a bottom is in, at least for now. And we'll see. Obviously, this average sales price, we need to see like how they're going to report when Onvo is out. It's obviously a lower price model. I think maybe in the future they report NIO and Onvo each on their own. Otherwise, we need to see how we get back to calculating these numbers. But for me, that's a healthy indicator. It's good. I'm also usually looking at SG&A per vehicle sold. So because this to me provides an insight into how much marketing do they actually need to spend in order to get buyers, right? And I was actually estimating it's going to be around 9,700 USD. 7,500 USD, but the actual is slightly higher. Actually, yeah, quite a bit higher, because I had this big difference here in my SG&A estimates. I'm telling you why this is still a good number. We're now still below 10K, and actually historically we've been much higher than 10K per vehicle. And what we don't want to see is actually the vehicle sales, the revenues going up and growing over time, while we also need to spend more on SG&A and more on marketing, because that would mean that we're actually subsidizing our vehicle sales too much. So, but now this metric tells me that NIO has some organic growth in their vehicle sales. So that's good news to me, although I'm slightly off here, but that's mainly due to my personal difference here. So that's my personal differences versus the actuals. And welcome back to everybody who's just tuning in. We're almost at 400 people watching this live. This is amazing. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I would appreciate if you smash a like and share it so more people can view this. This will also be available as a recording afterwards. I just went through the earnings report. So what's stated on the earnings report, I gave you my personal estimations versus the actuals. I said that this is mainly in line, the report, with my personal estimations and the analyst estimations. So yeah, not a big surprise earnings from what I've seen so fast. Now, maybe I can see if I missed anything in the earnings report. So one example would be, I still don't see anything like a one-time fee from 4.7 for NIO, which I've talked about this channel. This would be a way for NIO to actually go quicker to profitability and also to get money without raising money. They have signed this deal with a company which is a UK incorporated company now that is possibly creating a new luxury vehicle and a new design. It's not going to be the NIO brand, but the important fact here is that the investors of this company are the same Abu Dhabi funds that have invested in NIO, and they are licensing NIO technology. So I haven't seen anything in this earnings coming up from any licensing income streams here. So that tells me that it's still not in the books. So we could still look forward to them coming maybe regularly at some point in the future. And that could help with profitability because this is essentially 100% margin revenue, which they're getting if they get royalties, if they get licenses for this company using NIO's technology. And I haven't seen it in this current report. So maybe I've missed that. Oh, there's Joseph. So by the way, a Patreon member. So shout out to Joseph. I really value your frequent chat contributions in our all members chat. You mentioned here any idea why or when 4.7 would show up in the earnings report. Yeah, I haven't seen it in there. So in a sense, that's good news because it means that money is still out pending. It's coming at some time. I'm very bullish on that deal and think it will be huge. I agree. I think it could essentially be even billions. If they're going to license a huge chunk of NIO's R&D, essentially, and how the shareholder structure is basically an incentive for this company to, provide the funds to NIO. So it's actually one of the main reasons maybe why Abu Dhabi also invested in this big way into NIO, but it's certainly not part of this report. Yeah. Let's see. I can maybe dive into the report again. Let me see who did the CFO comments, but it must be the new CFO, right? Stanley Uchi. Yep, it's a new CFO. Yeah, very much looking forward to how this guy is going to do on this earnings call today. He's been on the earnings call before, but today he's going to take the main chunk. By the way, again, after I finalize this walkthrough of the report, I will actually make a second live stream later on for the management call. I have to look up the time, but should be in an hour or something. So we still got some time. Let me see. I see that the pre-market is up 5%. It's a bit surprising to see, to be honest, because the earnings reactions to NIO usually are quite negative. Also, this report is not a blowout of the ballpark report, right? There's lots to be not liked, as I said, like with still a net loss of 700 million, cash burn, blah blah blah. So I mean, the shorts can still go and whine about this, but maybe there's just been so much conservatism going into this report, and maybe people now waking up with the Vico margin and stuff that I mentioned, and they need the numbers to actually buy into that. And maybe now they're also looking a little bit to see how Stanley is doing in the earnings call. New CFO is always a question mark. So it's going to be the first time these analysts will be able to talk to him personally in this call. And by the way, the same analyst who said going into this year that NIO will have trouble selling cars. And here we are, like I said in my last video, 20K consecutively, now also guiding to another 20K plus and finishing up with 61 to 63K for the quarter in 2024. And that's really before Onvo. I have to say, you guys don't like my takes on that, but I'm still maybe in line with those analysts out there, quite conservative and skeptical about the short-term potential of Onvo. It doesn't mean I'm bearish on Onvo, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying don't have overly bullish expectations on the short-term impact of a new brand, of a new car, which we've seen, of course, we had COVID and stuff, but NIO made mistakes with the way they launched the 87, the 85, and so on. And you don't want to burn your customer base. And it doesn't help us if they just churn out cars and then have an empty backlog, or people complain about something. We've seen that multiple times now. By the way, isn't it interesting that sometimes Xiaomi is only at 2,000 cars weekly? Yeah, it seems like they burned through some of their backlog as well. But yeah, not here to bash Xiaomi in any sort, but things are quite difficult and harsh in China. You sometimes just have one shot. So I would rather have them do it right. And that's why, in my personal estimations, in my business case, there's not much in for Onvo for this year. I'm mainly watching NIO as of now. This will change next year, where I think Onvo will take a huge chunk of NIO's sales. But so far, so good. I mean, I'm happy with the results so far. So let's dive into a couple of your questions. The obvious profitability question by Casimir: when do I think that NIO will become profitable? I think the first profitable quarter, maybe next year, Q4. That's how I have it in my business case, which I'm currently not only sharing in my Patreon community, and I need to update it and stuff. Maybe I will make future videos on this again, but I think maybe full year profitability could be happening in 2026, in my opinion, if everything's going well, according to my estimations, which I have to say, in the last couple of months, they are really spot on. It's just like clockwork. It's really going in that direction. However, and I also should say that it's not financial advice, and there is risk attached. Things could still turn sour. It's still, they cannot keep on burning 700 mil a quarter, and I'm not expecting them to do. But the fact is, they're still doing it, right? I see a path to breaking even with the first quarter, end of next year, and 2026, maybe a full year break even. I see that path, but it's going to be very difficult. But I think NIO can do that, and they can pull it off. And by that time, they should, in my opinion, still have around 4 billion and more in cash left. So if that's the case, they're nowhere close running bankrupt. But if things go sour and they make a mistake, that's why I'm so cautious on Onvo. If they make a mistake, they don't have many options, right? They don't have many chances anymore. So they now need to execute perfectly in this setup. Yeah, the cash at hand is strong. They're well capitalized, and as I mentioned in a previous video, which maybe not everybody has watched, but NIO has now several ways of tapping into the markets without even diluting shareholders or having to ask the markets for new money. Basically, this 4/7 deal, which Joseph mentioned, is a way of funneling money into NIO, high margin money, for those licenses. The question is like how big this will be. That's why we're waiting in these reports for any answers for that, but we don't get it so far. And the question is like, will this be continuous? But certainly just reading how everything's lining up, right? I mean, Abu Dhabi as a 20% shareholder of NIO and being the funder of this other company, they have this set up like the incentive structure is clearly there to be that way, that at some point NIO will be rewarded for giving this technology to this new venture. Yeah, regarding the business outlook, looks quite strong to me. As I said, like it can fluctuate over time. So I wouldn't have been surprised if we get some below 20K months from now and then, but it seems that this will not be the case. And as I said, I'm expecting very low Onvo sales in the beginning, maybe too low. I'm sometimes even, my patrons hold me accountable and they say, how come you're so bearish, Marcel, on the Onvo sales? Let me see. I only have like 5,500 for Q3. So in September, maybe 5,500 sales, could be more. And next quarter, I also have only 9,000 for the whole quarter. So it's very conservative on my side for the Onvo sales. That's because I'd rather have them go conservatively. But definitely there's also potential, right? We've seen that they have spent some time with the factory already churning out some Onvo models maybe for the dealerships and so on, and it's still unsure like how fast they will give it also to the consumers. But maybe they have all planned it out. I mean, like more than 100 stores is quite a thing. So it doesn't look to me like they're going small scales. I'm not saying that they're gonna go small on purpose. I just say, if I look at Model 3 numbers when they scale it up, or the initial months of the ET5, the ET7, and so on, we usually have seen very, very low numbers in the beginning, and it makes sense because, mass producing cars is difficult. People just think, oh yeah, the car is there, and we've got 30,000, let's say, I'm just making this number up, 30,000 reservations. So why don't we have 30,000 sales in the first month? Sorry, but that's not the way it's working. You need to scale it up, and also that NIO is putting high emphasis on service, on sales, communication with the customer, and so on. They cannot just simply jump in there and put out a car just in order to satisfy Wall Street and or us. Okay, that's my take. Some people are talking about the Tesla killer here, Michael. Yeah, I have to say, on paper or what I've seen on the videos and the reviews and stuff, it's looking like a very, very strong proposition. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's looking fantastic. Again, don't underestimate Tesla. It's also a huge brand. It's a Western brand. Chinese people are quite cautious in the way they're spending. They have never heard about Onvo before. We are a very niche, unique group here who has much more insight than most people out there, especially Western investors, of course, but also even more than the ordinary Chinese consumer. So it's not a self-selling thing. They need to do the actual work in order to get it out into the hands of consumers. And Tesla is miles ahead of that. Keep in mind, 6 to 7 years ago, they launched the Model Y and still selling well and still on par on some of the performance specs with the Onvo that's going to be to launch now. So never underestimate Tesla. Never underestimate Elon Musk and also Tom Zhu, who's heading Tesla again now in China. They won't give up easily. So I would prefer to see this as a nice offering by NIO and a success of following now their new vision of becoming this conglomerate, even with sub-brands, and let's hope they can succeed with that. And we all have to transition to EV over time. Still plenty of market share to have, and it's looking very compelling. I agree, and should have should have a strong proposition, should have be a good selling car. I agree. Porsche as a battery swap partner might be. I'm not ruling that out. Yep, on paper would make a lot of sense for Porsche. I agree. And Volkswagen in general. But these are, you need to think from a Western perspective. These OEM, they are usually very conservative. They don't make decisions over short-term thinking, and sometimes they need some buy-in by other players before. So my speculation is, or my prediction is that the Western OEM will be the last to join battery swapping, because they first need to see the Chinese players with all of these partnerships like Geely and so on to join, bring out their own cars. And once it's suddenly a thing, also for other brands, they will be like, God damn, we need this. Why didn't we have that? Let's also do it. So So here's a comment about the Onvo CEO. To be honest, I haven't had any personal contact with him yet, so to me that's also black box. But there seems to be a high regard for what he's been achieving in the past. He's been a long-term employee with NIO. Marcus, yes, in short, I do see potential for Volkswagen and NIO. Although I think, NIO is really set up to be very much targeted at what Volkswagen is doing with Audi, Porsche, and now with the volume stuff in the mass market. And Volkswagen already made some very important decisions with Xiaopeng in China and in the US with Rivian. So it would need to be around battery swapping. So we'll see. As I said, just my prediction is they will first need to show some proof, and then if the market pressure is there, then they may act. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think on paper it would make sense. What would you think on cannibalization of NIO sedans with Onvo? Yep, to be honest, that's a potential negative of Onvo. This is where I'm still lacking, my first-hand perspective on the Onvo car. So unfortunately, last time in China, I didn't have the chance to take a look, and now I don't know exactly when I'm going to be back and have my first look at the Onvo car. But just looking at the specs and the videos and stuff might not be enough to get a real feeling of how close it is to NIO. I would have to dive in a little bit more into the software aspects and so on. But I personally, in my business case, why I'm so conservative on Onvo is kind of that I do expect a little bit of cannibalization, because I think there will be people who are very pragmatic and they get a good offering there, and they may not opt to get an ET5 or an ET7 in the future. That's possible. But overall, I think we could also see, what they have handled well so far is, despite the fact that they have really announced the Onvo models and some specs and details early and still managed to sell this well, at least tells me that they managed to reduce the impact on the NIO brand so far. So that's already good. So this could have been already a problem in the last couple of months, but clearly it hasn't been. So that's quite positive. Maybe if that's a sign of what's to come, that NIO keeps on selling like this, and plus we get the Onvo on top, I mean, that's immensely bullish. That's really good. But for now, my base case would be to be conservative and to expect some NIO sales to be taken away also by the Onvo brand. And then it would be a matter of how well the Onvo brand sells and how profitable it can be in order to, kind of come to a balanced business case in that regard. Andrea asks, what would be your one question in the earnings call? There might be a better question, but what immediately comes to my mind, and I will be covering the earnings call in a second, is, I think one of the key things to get away with is to distort this narrative that battery swap stations are just cash burning machines and there is no benefit to NIO as a whole, and also not to the business model and not to cash prospects of that in the future. So I would really want to hear more about profitability of battery swapping, with the revenue potentials around grid balancing and the partnerships. So I think if I were an analyst on a call, I would try to get some monetization outlook by management on the specifics of battery swap stations and the plans to building them out and the plans to monetizing them in the future. So I keep talking about that on the channel because I think that's very important. But yeah. Denista is asking, liabilities of NIO are higher compared to Axpon and Rivian. What's my take? About the debt situation of NIO. So yeah, NIO certainly has debt and also convertible bonds, which need to be buying back. I think that's one of the big reasons why we see sometimes NIO stock underperform to competitors in this current macro environment, because companies with lots of cash burn and high liabilities and debt, they are getting sold off by algorithms or also by traders on headline news. So that's why I'm actually surprised today, given that the net income hasn't come down as much as I thought, and EPS just roughly in line, that the first pre-market was looking good. So this is exactly what Denista is mentioning here. This is still the bear narrative, the short narrative, that NIO at some point will burn through their money and need to raise new money, or will even go out of business. Again, this is maybe why on the financial side, NIO as an asset, as an equity, is underperforming and not doing as well. But as I mentioned, like in my own business case, the projections over time, I think there's a path to profitability with current cash position and with the current business outlook. If they don't get there at some point in time, then obviously cash and liabilities are becoming in focus again and will become an issue to not only investors but also the company. However, we also have to see, like, if we get like a macro environment improving, like Fed interest rate cuts, China possibly stimulating their economy bigger after the US election and after the interest rate cuts are coming. At that point in time, also these algorithms will possibly look away from those liabilities and cash burning aspects a little bit more, and NIO could suddenly become an outperformer, especially if by then also the net income or net the net profits getting better or going into the right direction. Will I be updating my business case for NIO 2024 soon? To be honest, my business case is going exactly at point at this point in time. So I don't see the need for updating it. I will possibly make a Patreon-only video again. And Alan, I know, shout out, you're one of our Patreon subscribers and in the all member chat regularly. I also really appreciate, similarly to Joseph, your takes, Alan, on that sort of thing. So for now, I think I don't need an update really on the business case. There wasn't anything new in there today. Maybe, I mean, in my business case, I even don't have this potential for 7 revenues in there. Let's see if there's something materially changing, I will update it. But for now, I think we're just pretty much on track for 2024. But then, depending on how Onvo really is going, I may have to possibly update my Onvo projections, which I mentioned are quite pessimistic currently. Patrick, Mr. P said he thought the Onvo was superior to the NIO in many ways, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, like I said, NIO's still selling well. So they need a good differentiation there. Anyone else feel like NIO should step up their exterior design? Seeker, Polestar, Aito, Xiaomi, Li all make more interesting, more premium. Well, I'll be disagreeing with that. I think, to be honest, I never liked the Seeker designs. They're growing on me since I've seen them in China so many times. But yeah, you have to note also that there is, I think, a substantial quality difference feel between a Seeker, Polestar, an Aito, a Xiaomi, and Li Auto, and a NIO. NIO is much better in my perception on that metrics as well as on the design metrics. I think Xiaomi is just a Taycan copycat. Li Auto is ugly as hell in my opinion. Polestar, I don't like at all. So no, I mean, design aesthetics are very personal, I know, but I think NIO is looking pretty Teutonic to me, like could be a German design, to be honest. So I like that. Am I covering the conference call? Yes, I actually have to see what time it starts in order not missing it. I'm doing this live stream now already for almost an hour, isn't it? Conference call is, let me see, I'm just gonna sign up for a second. In 1 hour, okay, still got some time. Someday I should ask NIO if I can attend it and ask a question. Yeah, 1 hour left, so I can still take some questions maybe. But yeah, again, we're almost 400 people in here. Appreciate that. This was my take on the earnings report. So far, pretty much in line with my own expectations and with analysts' expectations. And given our expectations seem to be on the conservative side, interestingly, the stock is up pre-market. It's coming down a bit. It's now only up 3%, has been up 5%. But you know how volatile NIO is, right? This can easily turn into negative. I wouldn't be surprised for that. Usually it takes NIO stock or other stocks in general 3 trading days to really work in all of those dumb traders who are just trading on headlines and not even knowing the companies until the real investors stepping in. Interesting question by Krasimir. Marcel, do you think Firefly could be using CATL swap stations? I think there might be this partnership opportunity, yep. Although we also had some comments from NIO executives that they're kind of, you know about the announcement, right? That CATL also is building out their swap station network and stuff, and NIO is basically responding like, yeah, competition is on, we're gonna beat you guys. So sounds a little bit more like competition, but Firefly is gonna be a whole new thing, and there's not much known about it yet. And I've been talking with the Firefly designers in Munich sometimes, and if you talk with them, their eyes are like really wide open, and you can see how much they love that car, and there seems to be some special things happening with that car. So I wouldn't rule it out. On paper, you need to know that NIO has been at the forefront of creating battery swap standards, and they're now bringing it onto all of these partnerships, and they are together with all of these industry players, and CATL is just one of them, right? It's a big client for NIO for battery purchases, but also they're invested in the NIO Battery Asset Management Company, so they're they want to grow battery swapping. The fact that they have their own battery swap network is just proving to the industry that this is interesting. Now, to be honest, I haven't seen a single EVgo battery swap station during my time in China. Maybe I wasn't specifically searching for it, but the CATL battery swapping didn't get much traction on its own. So I would take their build out plans with a grain of salt and see if they're really going to scale it or whether or not it's just been a little bit of a hype. And ultimately, with those real mass market cheap cars, there's more opportunity to partner up and make this an industry standard. We know that the CATL swap stations have like this, this chock block technology that you can have different battery sizes in there. I wouldn't rule out that NIO's doing something else or something similar. It can go both ways. Does Firefly also have own stores? I think we don't know anything about that yet. The only thing I think we know yet slowly is that both Onvo and Firefly, I think, will be coming to Europe. So okay. Cool. This has been quite a stream, 1 hour now. I appreciate it if you tuned in early, and if you're coming later and watch this possibly as a recording in the West Coast, in the US or so on. I hope you like that, this walkthrough. Generally, I would say, yeah, pretty good earnings in line. On the other hand, not good enough earnings to be like really excited about this. I would have been very excited if they both confirmed those double-digit vehicle margins, as well as a big decrease in net losses. They showed the confirmation of the double-digit vehicle margins. Maybe in the earnings call we'll hear something like even guiding too much towards consistent growth in that. And then for the net income, we did see a slight decrease of the losses. So that's good, but it's not enough yet. It's not the big bang yet. But some catalysts also have been absent, like the 407 deal, right? So they can still pimp those numbers in the future, I believe, given they have this license agreement. But we might learn more about that in the earnings call. Thanks, everybody. Please hit a like, as you're saying here in the comment section. Thank you so much. And share it. I think it's always good to do your own due diligence. This has just been my personal opinion, right? I've been following this company very deeply and since a long time. I'm personally invested. By that, it means also I am biased because I want them to succeed. I do see a case where they can succeed in the future. I think they are currently on a trajectory to breaking even over time. It's currently going, just as I said, like clockwork, along with my personal business case. However, if they make a mistake, things can turn sour very quickly, and they could get into a desperate situation. So this is not without risk, but I do see the potential, and I think NIO is quite different to what else is out there, and it's quite unique. I really like their approach, and I think it's having lots of potential. So that's why I cover it here on the channel. I'm not paid by NIO in any sort. I've not got a business relation with them. Whenever I have my NIO cars, these are subscriptions that I'm paying for personally or with our company. So you need to know that. And with that, I'm looking forward to hopefully continued better earnings over time. This has been a first step, but there's much more work necessary. Now I'm looking forward in my next live stream towards the general management take and how well the new CFO will be doing. Based on that, I think we'll see the market reaction today. But always keep in mind, it's volatile. It's a trading war. It's sometimes people go as far as saying it's manipulated. The macros are not in favor of NIO, but they are shortly aligning, in my opinion, with the dollar, with interest rates, with the Chinese economy and stuff. I think they are slowly aligning towards getting better. But sometimes the stock is not the company, and it takes some time, right? Even if we had really good results today, that's not a given that the stock price will react according to it. So just keep that in mind. Just on a personal note, you can become a member of this channel and support it financially. That's a way of doing it currently, but I've closed my Patreon for now. We're now 300 people currently in this Patreon community. It's a well number that I can manage. I might think about towards the end of the year of maybe reopening it. I will let you know on the channel, obviously. That's a way to keep us independent and such, but as you may know, we're also a consulting business, so we have lots of project that we take at the side, and that's sometimes I cannot spend full time on YouTube or fully monetize it here. That's not our business model for now, but towards the end of the year, sometimes I have more time and I can think about new initiatives. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate you sticking with us and NIO during these certainly very difficult times in the stock markets when it comes to Chinese stocks. But at the same time, as this is really quite depressing and also a utter disaster in the way Chinese stocks are valued and have been trading in the last couple of years, at the same time, this could be a unique generational buying opportunity. It's always about risk management and how certain you are and your personal financial situation. And I don't know that situation, so I cannot pull the trigger for you. All I can do is put out the information there, give you my take, because frankly, I think the short and bear narrative is overwhelming out there, and there's not lots of people having really a long-term view and also a bullish thesis currently on NIO. So that's what I try to provide, and that's where you can follow me here on YouTube, on X, and on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and see you in the earnings call. Bye-bye.